Hello and welcome to the video. So I'm going to try and keep this introduction as brief as possible. Today I'm going to do a little bit of coding. I found this video on YouTube by Chris DeLeon. It's not really a tutorial, it's more like an example of rapid prototyping. We're going to play the video at double speed and we're going to try and follow along. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and describe bit by bit what I think his code is doing with my limited knowledge, so that could be a little bit hilarious, but that's basically it. I've created a HTML document called platform.html. That is open in VS Code, but it's also opened in Firefox. That's pretty much it. And without further ado, let's get going. Let's start watching his video.
Demo this time we're doing one of a platforming game, which will not be a great full-featured platforming game. We're not making Mario. It's going to be kind of junktastic, but that's part of the fun. Gotta keep it light and airy, which is the way rapid prototyping goes. And once again, I literally specialize in rapid prototyping. It's not that I'm canvas equals, hold on, document dot get element by ID. This part I think about element by ID, because this is something that only shows up once per program. It's kind of boilerplate stuff, context. I heard somebody say like, oh, there's no way I'd want to write boilerplate. Like there's like 3 lines of code here. All right, so we're getting the context stuff. We're gonna have a few functions for it. The game's gonna have an update tick. We'll have a key release function, unlike last time. You know what? That's way too long. It's way long. Key up. Now we're talking. Key down. And those will be taking EBT.
Okay, so I don't know if I said this before, but I'm going to cut out all of my coding part because, to be honest, for someone who wants to be a coder, I type very slow. So I'm just going to cut that out and just sort of intersect like this. But so far, anyway, we have a canvas tag here and we have the script tag. So everything between these two script tags is our code, and the canvas here is defined essentially. A canvas is a section on the website that you can, it's like a window that you can render graphics in. We'll put it that way. Why not? It's fine. So usually you'd see more HTML tags making up a web page, but I think for speed he's just putting in the minimum he needs to. Web browsers are pretty clever these days, so they'll fill in whatever the rest for you, so it will still work. It's not the best way to go, but like I said, I think he's going for speed rather than, you know. So far we have here at the start window.onload. So basically he's assigning a function to window.onload, and which means everything here between these two curly braces, this one here and this one here, will be executed when the page loads. And all he's done is he's defined 2 variables essentially, which canv is the variable that allows us to programmatically access the canvas, I guess. So this is what this code basically says. The canv variable is equal to a fancy bit of code which looks up the ID, which the ID is defined here. So you're saying canv is a nice way in the programming just to refer to this canvas. CTX is the context. I'm not going to make myself sound stupid by trying to explain context, but essentially the context is what we're going to use to actually throw graphics into that canvas. So we're taking a 2D context. Like I said, not going to try and explain that too much because I will sound silly, but yeah. So we have 3 functions he's defined here. Update, I'm guessing he's going to call a certain amounts a second, and that will be all the game logic and everything running through there. You know, the rendering the graphics, the controlling, updating the variable, in-game attribute variables, whatever you want to call them. And we have key up and key down. And these take essentially, I guess, an attribute, an EVT. Is it an attribute when you call a function? I don't know, but either way, this tells me straight away that EVT stands for event. So essentially, what he's probably going to add what are called event listeners pretty soon. An event listener, what basically that does is the system will listen out for certain things to happen. So in this case, with key down, it will listen out for the user pressing a key. And when the user presses a key, this function will be called, which means the code inside it will be executed, and the EVT will contain the information. So like in this example, it will contain the key that's pressed, things like that. Key up is similar, but essentially the system's listening for an event of you taking your finger off that key, and the same thing, it will fire up all the code in between these curly brackets here, whatever you call them. Yeah, that's it, basically. So let's move on.
Right, we can think about those. Let's look those up. Let's say set interval. So we're going to call update 30 times a second because it's as fast as human I can see. I know it's not true. I'm just trying to upset people. Document.add event listener. Actually, they're making a pretty low performance browser game. Key down is going to call key down. And we're going to hook up to the event for key up to call key up. And inside here, each one is going to be another switch case. You know, I feel about switch cases and people who dislike switch cases.
So yeah, pretty much what I said. So this set interval, what that is basically saying is call this function here, you know, a little bit of code which basically says 30 times a second. So, you know, call update 30 times a second, So all the code between these two curly braces will be fired 30 times a second. And these are the event listeners I spoke about, which is basically just saying listen out when a key is pressed and then call this function. So when a key is pressed, it will call this key down function here, and the same here for key up. So when the user lifts their finger off the key, this code here, this code here will be called. So yeah, pretty standard stuff so far.
Going to be another switch case. You know how I feel about switch cases and people who dislike switch cases for specific situations. All right, so again, it's clockwise, starting from left at 37. So beep warp, 38, 39. And hopefully you'll notice my keys are quieter. I got myself a little shock mount, a little separation arm, put my keyboard up on a little blanket, just try to make everything cozy and calm and quieter for us. Hold left equals true. We're gonna have a hold functionality here to mediate our controls. Otherwise, it'll be independent, or otherwise it'll depend on our frame rate of our system, not our frame rate, our browser and our operating system stuff is when keys get held. So if on ground, then y velocity is going to equal -10 to boost us in the air. Now we're starting to think about what these variables are, right? So
he's used a switch case here. Honestly, switch cases aren't necessarily my cup of tea, but okay, we're fine with it. Essentially, what this is a fancy way of you take the event, and the dot key code part is essentially the key that is being pressed, like the key being pressed that triggered the event in the first place. And then it's saying, this is a nice way of saying, if that key code is 37, 38, or 39, do certain things in that situation. So in this case, you've got, I'm not exactly sure what the key codes are, but a guess will tell me that it's essentially the cursor keys, right? So 37, and then he's assigning a boolean to true, which he hasn't defined yet. So I think he said he's about to define the variables. So he's working this in a weird order. But yeah, hold left is true. So it tells us that key code 37 is probably the left cursor. Hold right, true. So the right cursor. And I'm guessing 38 would be the up cursor because it seems to be the jump, because we got YV, which is, I'm assuming, Y velocity -10. So it's jumping. Like character, the velocity of -10 can travel up the screen, but we'll see more on that later. So this is essentially saying if on G is true. So when you don't have to include the true part. If on G just means if. Just typing it like that will say if on G is true. So if on G, so if on ground, Y velocity is -10. So again, you can kind of see where it's going. It's saying if the character is on the ground, he can jump. So then you can switch his velocity to Y to -10. So he'll jump. But if he's not on the ground, he's already jumping. Then you don't want to trigger that, because otherwise you'll just be able to jump indefinitely. You just be able to press up, and then the character will constantly go up. Yeah. You can it's making sense to me anyway. So I'm guessing, yeah, he's probably going to start defining his variables now.
we got player X and player Y, it's starting like 200. We got X velocity, Y velocity is one living thing in the world, 0 by default. Gravity, let's call it 0.5. On ground defaults to false, we're not on ground yet. Hold left equals hold right equals false. Alright, so true, if we're on the ground, push us up in the air. We don't need to throw it to false.
I'm a little bit triggered, I'll be honest. What we really want to see is var here, although these days you'd more likely use let, because JavaScript's it's not what it used to be. But anyway, I can understand why he's not including it. It's for the sake of speed, and JavaScript's very forgiving. You don't need to include these things. So what we're seeing here is variables. So px and py, they are the player's horizontal location and vertical location. Now it's kind of shorthand, because usually you'd see this, but that basically that px and py, but you can, because they're both the same value, you can just define them together by that. So it's exactly the same thing, and the same with what xv and yv. So that's the velocity. So essentially your velocity is how fast you're traveling. Let's put that back. Gravity is, it's gravity, right? This is the value of how fast your character is going to fall. The velocity that gravity will act on your player character. We saw this already down here, but essentially this is on ground. So the start essentially of the game, he's going to straight away start falling because he won't be on ground. Hold left, hold right. So this is how we're going to look at this to decide whether our character needs to be moving, essentially. So hold left, hold right is just a little variable we can look at to find out whether the character has got his key down on the left or right cursor. So yeah, those are just variables, like leave it at that, I guess.
And we'll switch these cases over and up as well. And some people were like, hey Chris, did you do this 100 times to memorize it? No, if I did, I would be making fewer errors and typing this better. And probably in a different order. If y velocity is less than We're still going up at this point by that fast. We're slowing down. It's going to have us cap off our jumps. It's important how Mario-like games work. And now to get our logic working. Ooh, let's also set platformers. Platform equals empty list. Let's add 50 platforms. We're going to avoid... I mean, yes, I use var when I'm not speed coding, but let's get real. It's speed coding.
So we've defined an array called plat, which I'm guessing stands for platforms. So you're going to have an array of platforms, essentially. An array is essentially one name for multiple variables. So we're going to be able to access, I don't know, however many platforms he wants to create from one variable. So it'll be plat, well, okay. So say you had 10 values, and you wanted to access the 10th, because indexes start at 0. Is it like that? I can't remember. It's either my brain, right? So to access the 10th platform, you'd put it something like this, or assign it a value equals, I don't know, 80. Although depending on how is 80 or 90, I don't know. Depending on how he's going to define the platforms, I think what he's actually going to do is create objects. So the plat array will contain many objects, and those objects will have multiple attributes, so an X and a Y location and something else like that, I guess. But anyway, what else do we have? Right, so I'm going to reorganize this because he's got it in this. Have a look. Well, yeah, he's got key down first. Let's try and say consistent. I don't know why I ended up doing this in a different way, but it's Control X. Let's keep this consistent. Control V. Right, so so what we have here is the reverse, essentially. So here it assigns it to true. When you take the finger off the key, it assigns it to false. Let's have a look here. So y velocity is less than, right, so if y velocity is less than 3, then y velocity is equals less than 3. So I'm guessing this will be so you jump, your character has a y velocity of 10, he starts traveling up, he starts initiating his jump. But if you take your finger off the key before to early, it essentially will cut the jump off. So you can do like mini bunny hop jumps, is I'm guessing what that's for.
No, we don't have a link to it, so let's just do this. And now I'm just going to I'm just going to smash that for loop again multiple times. We're going to push in object literals. Again, it's one of our space trading speed saving tricks. X is going to be math.random times canvas width. Gross. Man, crossing my axes. I'm tired from day 83. Been helping out the Indicate booth, which you should check out Indicate if you know about Indicate. Indicate's pretty cool. We got one in New York City, it's Indicate East. We got one in recently Paris last year, the first one over in Paris, or in Europe at all. So that was exciting and fun. I hope we're in their workshops, and here at Indicate help make sure developers are happy. And I like people being happy to work on games, because games are cool, and I'm grateful people work on games and all that. So let's draw some stuff. This is going to be handy for us in a second.
We have a for loop. So what we're seeing here is everything between these two. So this curly bracket and this curly bracket will be, this is just a nice way of saying do everything between these two curly brackets 50 times, right? So we're going to have 50 platforms. That tells us that straight away then, because what we're then doing is plat.push. Now plat is an array that we assigned here. So yeah, platforms. Push means insert values into the array, right? So it'll add it to the array. That's what I said earlier was true. So essentially, we create an object between these two curly brackets. So an object is kind of like a data structure, I guess, where you store multiple values. Objects can even contain objects, but let's not get bogged down with that. But so we've got X value, a Y value, W and a H, so width and height, I'm guessing. So we're going to, each object being put into the array has 4 separate values. So we have, 50 times 4 values essentially total in the array. I'm explaining that really poorly. What he's doing, I guess he's creating, what would it be, like procedural generation, because these are all random. So the width and the height is going to be random, the X and Y location is going to be random. So it's where on the X and Y refers to the location on the screen the platform is, and then obviously width and height is pretty self-explanatory. I'm not exactly sure why he's coded this. I'm sure it makes sense, right? But he's coded this way for a reason. So it's I can't remember exactly what math.random generates, but I think it generates a number between 0.0 and like 0.9, but it has like, it's not just like 10. It'll be like 0.8567. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, so essentially random location with a little bit of code to make it make sense. So I'm guessing this probably translates it to whole numbers that make sense, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, essentially we are generating an array of 50 platforms there. Is that all? Yeah, that's all we've got so far. I didn't put anything else today. Yeah, so next.
Because we're going to need that platform code. But first, let's do a context fill styled black. First thing we're going to do is black out the canvas between every frame. If we don't do that, then we're going to have smudgy graphics. Nobody wants smudgy graphics. Get out of here with that nonsense. Canvas width, canvas height. Okay, we're going to draw our player next. We're going to treat our player's collision as the point at the bottom of their feet because we are rushing, and that's good enough for now. Again, literally specializing in rapid prototyping. Did I say fill style height? Ooh, man, I am sleepy. Okay, it's late here. It's like 2 a.m. in the morning. But I just got back from E3 stuff, so we're hanging out. Fill rect. Yes! Oh, this will be so easy with our data structure we did. Man. X. Some people are like, hey, did you plan this out severely? Not really. The trick, as you'll see from some other videos, is that I've been programming for a very long time, specifically specializing in rapid prototyping. White. So we got those for the updates. We're going to draw all that mess. These are the same.
Okay, so potentially we have something happening now. Like, hopefully. So what we're doing is we are now drawing to that canvas, but we're drawing it via the CTX, which I very poorly explained is the, where is it here? Is the context here. So we've defined CTX here, which is the context with which we draw onto the canvas. That's a good way of putting it. It's good as any. Anyway, so you can see that we access the CTX to essentially, there's many methods contained inside the CTX namespace, I think would be the way to put it. So when we say CTX fill style, we're saying we want to fill it with this color, black. Black? That makes sense? Oh, no, all right, I see. All right, okay, I see what's going on here, right? So this first bit here, these 2 lines of code, is it will clear the canvas, because otherwise you're going to get glitchy behaviors. Yeah, it doesn't matter, but you're going to clear the canvas to black. So you have a black canvas at the start of this update, and then we're going to switch to fill style white. So everything's white at this point, and then we are going to draw the player, I guess, right? Because we got the player's X location -5, the player's Y location -20. Yeah, so we're basically saying 10 and 20. Yeah, so size 10, 20. And well, we're essentially going to draw a little rectangle which is going to represent the player, and it's going to be 10 by 20, width of 10, height of 20. So yeah, a little rectangle. Then we have another for loop, which is essentially it iterates through every object in the platform array and draws it on the screen, essentially. So it will access it uses the values. So you see, to access the array, it takes I, which is the variable that's created here, that's been iterated through for the for loop. And then so, it will do it 50 times, and each time it will go through the values that we've inserted into that array and draw on the screen, potentially. So now we're actually, if I save this, I mean, famous last words, but it should actually do something now. Let's have a look. It did not. So yeah, I kind of thought this would happen. Like, nothing ever works right first time around. Let me take some time to see what I've done wrong here. Okay, I had a fun time tracking that down, but I think I fixed it. Essentially, I had used one. Every time you have an open curly brace, you have to have a corresponding closing curly brace, and I'd sort of messed up where I'd placed them. But hopefully, it should work now. Let's have a look. Yeah, there we go. Right, so it's closed down. So yeah, essentially now you see these are the platforms, and it's going to use those random locations every time. And I think you can kind of, I tell you what we can do. Let's go off script a little bit and just change the colors so that we've got a difference. So we've got white here, and this is where it draws. Okay, so if we go CTX, whoa, go away. CTX dot fill style equals, and then just put maybe green, I guess, for the, right. Now that the platform should now hopefully be green. I didn't put capital S. Right, so now the platform should be green, hopefully. Let's save that and have a look. Yeah, see, well, you can kind of see the player sort of poking out there, but yeah, now the platform's green. There we go, perfect.
Loop, because we're also going to check collisions against it. Speaking of action, plus equals, x velocity, and then y velocity, so that's going to keep our object moving along the vector. And if, hold left, and again, this is separated because otherwise it would depend on the repeat rate of the operating system.
Okay, I'm not sure why I stopped so early, but I guess I got maybe a bit excited because he's starting actually to get into the functionality now. So essentially we've got px and py plus equals xv and yv. So we're saying player's x location add on the velocity. So the player will now start traveling based on velocity in theory. So yeah, so you can see where we're rendering or we're drawing the player here. And we're drawing it based on its XY location, so that XY location is going to be updated now, although not yet because we haven't actually changed the velocity. The velocity is going to be set to 0, but still, it's happening. It's all happening. So yeah, he's created a for loop here. I'm guessing this is going to be for, yeah, it's going to be for collision detection of the platforms, I assume. And yeah, we're starting to add. So this bit here where he's got if hold left, this is where you're going to start to see him add velocity. So left would be minus and then right would be plus, but yeah, we'll see.
Depending on the repeat rate of the operating system, which I realized I messed up earlier saying that. And that will equal -2. If we're holding right, that will equal +2. And if we're on ground, then we're going to apply friction to our speed. Times equals 0.7, seems harsh, 0.8. Else, if we're in the air, then y velocity plus equals gravity. So that code makes a little bit of sense to us. And so now, if we touch a platform, so if our feet, which is our px, is greater than the left side.
First, we've got the if hold left and if hold right. This is basically saying if hold left is true, and if you remember rightly, when you got key down, if you press the left cursor key, then hold left is assigned the value true. So that basically means if hold left is true, so yes, it will be, and it's saying xv or x velocity will be equal or given the value of -2. I have not put in the, there we go. Of -2, which means essentially when it's applied in this update here, so px plus equals xv, xv will now equal -2, so the player will travel 2 pixels to the left, or negative on the x-axis, and the same here. Oh, my God, I must be tired. Okay, so right. There we go. Let's try again. So left and right. So if hold right is true, then we plus. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, what else have we got here? So if on the ground, so the player's on the ground. Now this is actually very interesting. I like this because it's xv times equals 0.8. So you're saying take the value of xv and times it by 0.8 of itself. So minus 0.2 of its value. Does that make sense? Maths is hard, but yeah. So essentially saying when you're on the ground, apply friction. So like you have, when you jump off the ground, you will travel faster left than if you was on the ground, which I think, see, this is actually the good that I'm watching this video, because this I don't think I've really thought of this before, applying friction. So I'm learning. And basically here it's saying if you're on the ground, apply friction. If you're not on the ground, then apply gravity. So your character will start to fall. And so what we need now, which I think I heard him saying, is he's going to write out the collision detection for the platforms. And it looks like it's going to be quite a rudimentary collision detection. But so we need a way programmatically to decide whether the character's on the ground. So every single iteration of that update, so 30 times a second, it's going to check whether the character, the player, has intersected with one of the platforms. If it has, then it's on the ground, it's no longer falling, gravity won't be applied.
And also, it is left of the right side, so the left side plus the width of it will be the right side. And then we'll do this again. Somebody will think, okay, does it sound like Chris is talking too fast? Does it sound like he's accelerated his voice? No, I talk fast, especially if I'm not sleepy. But I mean, if I do when I'm sleepy, people won't be so critical of how fast I talk. Also, I tried talking slow for one video. People got mad at me, and they're like, hey man, what's the deal? Why are you talking so slow? Speed it back up again. So my impression is YouTube likes the fast talk. So we touched the ground, so now it's true. Otherwise, we should default to assume we're not on the ground for the next frame. And yeah, that seems...
I remember code like this is what kind of blew my mind when I was quite young and the first time I ever did programming, I'd see stuff like this and I'm like, well, yeah, that's it, I'm never going to be a programmer basically. But it's actually, it's not as complicated as it looks, because what this is basically saying is it's an if statement. So it's saying if something is true. So if something is true, do something. So it's, and in this situation, saying if the player's X is greater than plat, and it does. Future retro here. So I've been editing this video and it's been very cringeworthy for me, but this part in particular I drone on so much, and I figured I had to sit through it, but you guys don't have to. So what I've done is I've written a few comments here to try and explain this part a bit better. So at the start we set on G to false, so the player isn't on the ground. So if none of these conditionals return set it to true, it will be false by default essentially. So we have a for loop, which means it will loop through every single platform, so all 50 platforms. And what we have here is an if and a condition. Now this condition seems complicated, but I've written it out in a simplified form essentially. So it's saying, is the player's X position greater than the platform's left boundary and less than the platform's right boundary, as well as being greater than the platform's bottom boundary and less than the platform's top boundary. I put that in a more concise way here. So what we're doing is we're testing one point at the bottom center of the player's rectangle, and we're testing whether that is inside one of the platforms. If it is inside the platform, it has a bit of code here. Now what this does is obviously you don't ever want the player to see or the user to see the player inside the platform. So this bit of code just pops the player to the top of the platform, because for the collision to have occurred, the player is effectively at that point in the platform. Now this happens before it's rendered on these lines here, so it's never visually seen. You shouldn't visually see the player ever inside the platform. The other thing here is we've got we set on G to true. So at this point, later in the program, it knows that we can now jump because we've landed on a platform. And that's it. So I'll throw it back to past me. I really have talked for a long time, and I don't think I've explained that very well, but yeah.
Like maybe the game there. I guess we got a game. Let's try it. Plat.html. Yeah, play, typoed. But you know what? We're going to embrace it. We're going to run with it. We're going to have fun. Enjoy our lives. Things are good. Oh, look at the platformer. And sure enough, I run and I...
Right, so there we go. It looks like we're actually finished. So let's test if this works. Fingers crossed. Reload. It never works. Okay, let's do some debugging. So yeah, it's the same mistake again. I just missed out a curly brace here. Alright, let's try again. Hopefully that should have fixed it. Let's get rid of the debug. Oh, there we go. Oh, you see that? Kind of, I take my finger off here. That's the friction being applied there. And we jump. So there we go, platform game. Now, this is going to be glitchy. You can tell straight away just by the way that he implemented the collision detection. If I jump up onto this platform, it's going to glitch up. Yeah, there we go. It glitches up to the top. So yeah, it's you know, like he said, I guess it is a rapid prototype. But yeah, it does feel. I'll be honest. Like, and you got the bunny hop. Yeah, so yeah, you can bunny hop jump. Even for something done so quick, I think there's a lot to be learned from this. This was actually a lot of fun. I quite enjoyed this. And yeah, and you also have infinite level generation. There we go. Yeah, that was good. I enjoyed that. So yeah, I just felt like it's kind of recording that. I have no idea whether this is going to be a good video or something anybody would want to watch. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I guess I'll catch you next time.
Into the wonderful. Into the wonderful.